What's up, and welcome to OLS number 31.
Nah, wrap it up. They're in the game.
I'm JDoza. This is Boulevard. They're in the game. We're gonna go ahead and get into the game.
Like, take us to the game.
That was fast. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm hoping all my buttons work here. All right, here we go. And oh, of course, the mulligan on bottom is a little bit weird. I knew this was gonna happen.
Well, you got the card names in there, so that's something.
It's almost there. It's been a little while, guys. Apparently, my Streamlabs messed with all of my my templates and stuff like that. So, all right, I'm just bringing it over here. Then that way, it doesn't look completely weird here. And here we go. We should be good to go. We do have the second hand set up for Pachuki up top here. And I don't know about you, Boulevard, but I am looking forward to all these new spicy decks.
Yeah, you know, it's always nice to get to look at these before we hate them, right? You know, you see something over and over again, you start to regret it no matter what it is. So it's nice that we're still in the limelight of it. We still get to absorb these decks and really love it, like Pachuki's Zoe Nami, as well as Morctorcus. There's one too many C's in that word. Draven Scion.
Yeah, and I know we were just talking about this a little bit earlier too, Boulevard. The Draven Scion deck. I mean, you said you were playing a lot of it. I've played a lot of it. I absolutely love this deck. Love the way the cards are designed. Oh, have you? All right. Is that a challenge? Is that a challenge, Boulevard?
Probably. I was scrimming with a Worlds player last night who needed to play against a bunch of Draven Scions. So, you know, not to brag or anything. I
do think, you know, I mean, you bring up Worlds. I think this might be a deck that ends up making its way into Worlds somehow. Mo.
Oh, absolutely.
Mo.
Well, Mo, yes, but also I think just everybody else. When we look at the numbers for Top Cut here, nothing put up too big of numbers. There was a lot of 2-0s, a lot of 1-0s, but the things that did stand out to us were 5 Sivir Demacia alongside 5 Draven Scions. So, you know, this deck was the first to hit Masters on 3 servers, Southeast Asia, America, and Asia. So it's no surprise that it really took the tournament scene by storm. It's so flexible. There's a lot to still be figured out about the list. There's a lot of cool tech choices that I've seen. And I, you know, was mostly scrimming the Nami matchup yesterday, but I was playing against Bandle City Nami and PNZ Nami. I don't know how this deck actually does against the Zoe Nami.
Yes, so I have played the Bilgewater Nami. I've played a lot of, like you just mentioned as well. I have played against the Zoe Nami, but not enough. You know, really all I know about the deck is, okay, Nami buff Zoe a bunch, and you get a big old Zoe. That feels good. I think in general, I don't know. I mean, I know against the Bilgewater version, or sorry, I shouldn't say Bilgewater, the other Nami deck that's not playing Zoe, I know it can definitely, you know, beat you down with elusives before this sort of new discard aggro deck can really get online. But at the same token, Scion at 7, if Pachuki, I think, if they can't close out this game by turn 7, Scion is basically just an end the game button. It's very difficult to actually kill Scion and not have his effect go off.
Well, things aren't looking great for Pachuki, though. We don't actually have, like, any elusives. We have the Burblefish, but Sparklefly is really what we're looking for. And I thought that was really cool that this deck usually is playing the Gifts from Beyond, and Sparklefly is the only 2-drop, kind of like we used to do in Lee Sin. But without that access to the lifesteal, or at least an elusive chipping away at the life total of Morctorcus, things are not looking good for Pachuki here in the early game.
And it looks like we're going to gem up the Duskbringer here. I got to say, too, when I did play against the Zoe version, I don't remember the Duskbringers. So this might be a little bit of a different iteration of the deck. I actually want to pull up this deck list real quick. Don't mind me, Boulevard, as I probably block your view here. But it looks like, yeah, so this definitely, it's going high on the gem count here. I mean, there's 3 Gift Giver in the deck as well. And obviously, you know, we have the Mentor of the Stones, which not only can buff up, you know, Zoe and elusives even more, but also gives you the 3 more gems. So I gotta say, though, the card that's impressing me most in all these Nami decks, right? And I think generally speaking, any Nami deck we see right now is kind of going the buff up the elusives route. Fleet Admiral Shelley. This card is just doing work. And for those of you who don't know, it's the 5-drop elusive attune 3/3 that when you play 2 spells, every 2 spells you play, your entire field gets +1/+1. That in conjunction with Nami is absolutely insane. I mean, right now we don't really have a lot of elusives on board. And Morctorcus here, I mean, honestly, I gotta say, because of that, because Pachuki isn't really putting the pressure on with those elusives, we don't have that Fleet Admiral Shelley on board. I think Morctorcus is going to be able to close out this game.
Probably. The other thing about the non-Bandle City version is without stress defense, you don't have a great Scion answer. There's only one Hush in the list that's pretty standard from the Zoe Namis that I've seen, but usually you want a more permanent way to deal with Scion. You don't want to be blocking with a few of these units because a lot of your non-elusives are going to get thrown out as chumpers earlier on in the game, right? They're going to be, you know, dealing with the Risen Riders and the Twin Souls and things like that. So I don't know that we're going to be able to effectively deal with the Scion, especially when like half our hand is nothing right now, right? It's 3 gems, it's 2 Dusk Petal Dusts. As cool as the Lunari Duskbringer is, I don't know how much I love it in a deck like this where you're actually not playing any Nightfall abilities. I understand that, yeah, it's the cheap spell and it's probably as good as you're gonna get, but you know, conceptually it is a little weird.
Yeah, I think that's going a little bit too all in on the whole Nami Fleet Admiral Shelly strategy there, because I mean, at that point they're literally just useless spells. They're strictly just to activate those triggers. But I gotta say though, in Morctorcus's hand, I mean, you got 2 Get Excited and a Mystic Shot too. So right there, that's 8 damage. You also have, you know, one of the good things about this discard aggro deck still playing something like Poro Cannon is that versus all these elusive decks, you do have elusive blockers. And, you know, versus other, you know, matchups, you might actually be pushing through elusive damage. In this case, you're not worried about getting elusive damage pushed through with these Daring Poros. You really just want to have them have a substantial enough block to let you live that extra turn. Yeah.
Is there a delay on the stream?
I don't believe so, no.
Because we're not live.
I know why. Now we are, I mean, technically we'll be live in about 3 minutes, so there is going to be a delay on the stream, but we are now officially live. I was wondering why the viewer count on the right, I was like, man, yeah, I know it's been a while.
Yeah, I was like, I know we suck, but we don't like 0 viewers suck. So I was like, let me go check how long would we have done this if I didn't just go check the channel?
Honestly, probably the whole stream. I wouldn't even...
God.
All right.
Yes, we are back. We have said so many smart things in the last 7 turns that is now all out the window, unfortunately.
That was just our warm-up. That's fine. So then people just didn't get to hear all the stupid stuff that we actually said. So
but
it's okay.
I didn't say anything stupid. I said so many smart things.
Oh, man. All right. Well, so for those of you just catching up, we have the discard aggro versus Nami Zoe.
This is not discard aggro. Draven Scion is not discard aggro. That is still Draven Jinx.
All right. So actually, you know what? There's something I want to talk about though, because it very much still revolves around discard mechanics.
Yes.
So are we really just going to go all in on not being able to call this deck discard aggro and only refer to Draven Jinx as discard aggro?
Yes, because it's very confusing when you give 2 wildly different decks the same name.
Well, yeah, but
I wouldn't call this aggro. I have never seen this deck end the game before, like, the Scion turn.
Yeah, it is. It definitely does feel like a little bit more of a mid-rangey type deck.
Yeah, like, I've heard this called discard mid-range, and that's something I'm willing to call it, but I feel like Draven Scion just sounds cooler.
Actually, I do like discard mid-range, so maybe we shall dub this discard mid-range. But yeah, I agree with you, too, and I had mentioned that before when we weren't actually on stream, that turn 7 comes... And generally speaking, if you have a Scion in hand, it's usually the end turn there. So we also have this new card that we see on board here, Ancient Warmonger. So Ancient Warmonger, also when you discard it, if you discard it, gives the strongest unit on your field +2 attack. It's Grant, I believe, if I have that right. Yes. So
yep.
They do actually keep that buff as well. But the neat thing about this is that nobody's going to complain about a 5-drop 5/5 Overwhelm as well. So all in all, I do like this card as an addition to this more of a mid-range version, like you mentioned, Boulevard.
So I've been kind of torn on this card. I like it. It's got its uses as the +2 disc and as the +2 attack when you discard it, but I find myself more often than not just summoning it. And I think it's fine, right? Like a 5-mana 5/5 with Overwhelm is actually really good. I don't know if it's the best in slot for the deck, but I've been pretty happy with it up until this point. But it does look like Morctorcus has actually really started to gas out here. You know, we're into the late game. We're on the Scion turn. Didn't have the Scion. Really don't have much available. It's just the Get Excited in the Poro Cannon, which Poro Cannon's a good defensive tool here. You're not really going to be able to sneak through that elusive damage like you would want to and then finish your opponent off with the Get Excited. So Morctorcus is just really in a Scion waiting room.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. I mean, once this deck does run out of steam, so it runs out of steam a little bit later than your typical discard aggro deck would, like we were talking about earlier. But when it does run out of steam, there's not really much it can do from this spot, right? It's just kind of staying alive to eventually, hopefully, deal that extra damage for game. Right now, we only got 3 in hand with the Get Excited. There's also Lost Soul, if I have that card correctly. It's an 8-drop. So that's
that's Lost Souls.
Yeah, it's lost. It's plural. Excuse me. So that I kind of like in this deck for this exact reason, because later on in the game, it gives you a card that unless your opponent is playing something like Hush, or something that obliterates it, it just perpetuates on the field over and over and over again, and at least keeps you in
singular.
the game.
It's just Lost Soul.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I thought. Trying to show me up. All right.
Confused because it makes Twin Blade Revenant. Twin is 2, plural. Lost Souls, plural. That would make sense to me.
I do actually kind of agree with that. So. But yeah, that's why, I mean, that card at this point in the game I think is great. I've actually seen some people running 3 of it, which I do think is a little bit much in this deck.
Oh, I've been in love with 3 of it.
Really? Wow. Yeah.
But it looks like Morctorcus is not going to be able to clutch this one out. The Ebb going to clear out the blocker and just continue to buff up everything on the board. Not low enough on Pachuki's side in order for the Get Excited to finish it off. So it looks like Zoe Nami, despite sort of a rougher start than we maybe anticipated, not finding any Sparkle Flies, is still going to be able to pick up the game.
I love, by the way, this Ebb and Flow card design. I love that it's just straight from League of Legends. It's straight from her actual ability, and I just love it. It does so many things. It heals, it does the damage. And in this case, it's getting played right before Pachuki could go ahead and take home game number 1 in the top 8 here of OLS number 31. Man, I feel like it's been so long since I've said the words OLS have come out of my mouth. It's been too long, Boulevard.
It actually has been a minute, and we weren't sure we were going to host one this week. We thought it was going to be next week. Things get really confusing when those Worlds qualifiers get thrown at us at the last possible second. As well as some other behind-the-scenes things. But it does mean we had no LS this weekend. Didn't get a chance to cast day 1, but we are here in full swing for day number 2, and Morctorcus is going to run it back on that Draven Scion, while Pachuki going to swap over to an old favorite of yours, Doza, Karma Ezreal.
Karma, and actually, I was just looking at a list for Karma Ezreal. I think it was in the top 8 list of the OLS. It might have been the other tournament that was on there as well.
Probably Pachuki's then.
It might have been Pachuki's, yeah, but all the lists that I have seen, you know, there's a lot of new decks, obviously, that are coming out, a lot of new things happening. Karma Ezreal, for all intents and purposes, has basically stayed the same that it was, you know, maybe a couple months ago when it first kind of really came back to fruition as a competitive deck. You know, you got these Fallen Felines. You have the pod in the hand, Big Poppy Pod just chilling there. And, yeah, I mean, it looks to just slowly pick off the board and eventually get that Karma Ezreal down for just lots of gunslinging at the face there. So I'm actually curious to see how this particular matchup goes, because it's really going to depend on if Morctorcus can get off to a quick start here.
That it will. And Morctorcus's hand is not looking phenomenal for the quick start that you had mentioned, right? We got down a Boom Baboon, but outside of that, like, that's just getting chumped by these felines, and that's sort of one of the bigger weaknesses that I've noticed with Draven Scion, is it's pretty susceptible to chump blockers. And you can get around that a little bit by discarding Scion to give your strongest unit Overwhelm, but it's not really as clean as you want it to be, and discarding your Scion is a scary prospect if you only have the 1 in hand, because obviously that's one of your bigger win conditions. And even the Risen Rider, I feel, isn't doing as much as I want it to, because it seems like there's a lot of cards in the Bandlewood expansion that make it really easy to get these chump blockers up to 3 attack to block the Fearsome.
Yeah, and, you know, again, talking about this Scion that you just mentioned, you know, I can't recall, but I imagine there's Concussive Palms in Pachuki's deck. You know, that's definitely a way for Pachuki to shut down this Scion for multiple turns and really get things online to deal with it. Another way to deal with Scion too, which I've actually seen more so in, you know, regions with landmarks like Blighted Ravine for Freljord and Shurima, killing Scion at the end of round with some sort of end of round trigger, you know, prevents his rally effect from coming off after his last breath effect goes off. So no way for Pachuki to do that here. Just kind of, like I said, those Concussive Palms with the stun.
Yeah, actually 2 Palm 2 Will of Ionia, and Will of Ionia on Scion is
that's
devastating.
huge. Yeah, Will be huge. Now, how many survival skills have you liked in this deck, Boulevard?
I was on 2 and said this is not enough. I am all in on
Yeah.
3 survival skills.
Yeah, that I agree with. I think survival skills,
Morctorcus,
so good.
only on 1. So that was the sole survival skills that was used right there. I've seen players cut the card entirely. I think that's one of the more hotly contested things, and I think it's one of those cards that just really leans into the playstyle, right? Are you trying to play this like an aggro deck? Are you trying to play this like a mid-range deck? It's one of those flexibilities where players do get a little bit of say in how they actually want to run the deck, and it's nice to see the construction translate into that.
All right,
and I love this. I love throwing down Ancient Warmongers. I don't think I'm supposed to like it as much as I do. I think you are supposed to be utilizing the discard effect on this card a little bit more often, but it is strong.
I don't know. See, and that's where, so you had mentioned before you're not sure if it's best in slot for a 5-drop. I think that's where I'm a little confused on how long this card is going to stay in this deck, because it doesn't feel like discarding it for +2 is really that great. Like +2 attack in the grand scheme of things for that card just doesn't feel like it's as impactful as you want it to be.
It's really good. The problem is it goes onto your strongest unit. And usually I don't need my strongest unit to get +2 attack, right?
Yeah.
I need like my Flame Chompers to get +2 attack or my Daring Poro. And I think that's really the drawback of the card that is eventually going, like, I can very well accept that that card will probably not be sticking around.
Like the first thing that comes to my mind is Vision, right? Like, why not just play it? Now, this deck doesn't go as wide as discard aggro, so I mean, I guess that's the argument.
It does have the
there.
capability to do so, especially when you throw out the Poro cannons and things like that, but I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's like, it just feels like Vision's cheaper too, so it doesn't feel as bad of a card early on in the game. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a lot to be said about what the final most efficient build is going to be.
What we do know for right now is that Pachuki's been putting on an absolute clinic in terms of being able to pick apart Morctorcus's board, sort of stabilize their position, sitting at 13 life, very healthy, reasonable life total. We pick up the perfect concussive palm for this Scion.
And I gotta say, I mean, wow, if it wasn't for that concussive palm, if you look at the hand of Morctorcus, man, did that extra C.
It was looking a little rough.
Well, what I was gonna say though is you have these 2 Reborn Grenadiers. I mean, I love these cards. Both of these can actually, on the open attack for Morctorcus.
Oh, I love it.
You could go in with so many attackers here. You'll have both Reborn Grenadiers. You'll have the Scion. The Scion will get concussive palmed, as we saw, but this is going to be a pretty big open attack if that's what Mort's going for.
Unless Pachuki can proc Eye of the Dragon. If Eye goes off, the open is not looking great for Morctorcus. But Pachuki, as good a job as they have done of controlling the game so far, doesn't have Ezreal yet. I think they're not going to have any problem getting into turn 10, though. And, oh, never mind. We used our draw effect before we got the Karma off, trying to see what we could find here, trying to get our Eye of the Dragon proc. I would imagine Static Shock is going to be utilized if that is something that we're interested in doing. Ezreal is only 1 away, so we could even send 1 up top. But it looks like Pachuki is going to have that Dragon Link for the following turn.
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to lie, too. Just seeing this Karma Ezreal deck do a decent job of handling this aggressive archetype, this new aggressive archetype as well. I mean, maybe this is where Karma Ezreal starts to really be at the forefront of the metagame again. You know, if more decks like this Scion Draven start to pop up, which obviously, I mean, we're only at the beginning of the metagame here, or this new format, but this deck is everywhere. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people are playing Draven Scion.
I would say this is easily one of the most popular decks on ladder right now, no matter what region, no matter what rank.
And if Karma Ezreal can carve out a nice niche there for itself in combating this deck, I think gonna be in a pretty good spot. But we get a Zonite Urchin off the top as well, which that's a good way to kind of pass priority too and get a nice little draw here. But it looks like we are potentially going for the open attack, just saying, I pray to God you don't have a concussive palm, I guess. I can't imagine we don't do an open attack here. Unless we, okay. I'm actually very surprised to still see this, because like you said, Boulevard, I think this Dragon Link shuts down a lot of this this would-be damage, and we're really only pushing 1 damage when everything is said and done.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, so Concussive Palm is one of those cards where it's even more damning if you go for the development, right? Because now your unit is stunned, and I have this 3/2 that I can block something else with. It's one of those situations where I feel like the game is just kind of out of Morctorcus's hand. We're probably not going to be able to get through an attack with this Scion. The chances that we find a Will of Ionia or another copy of Concussive Palm are pretty high, especially since Pachuki can have down the Karma going into Morctorcus's next attack turn.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy for this sort of deck to get that Karma off the board either. I mean, we got a Mystic Shot in hand, but that's about where it ends there. We'd have to commit that and some other removal, like a second Mystic or a Get Excited, and honestly, it's not going to be worth it because Pachuki probably has a way to protect that Karma at that point. So this Karma is most likely going to be sticking, coming down probably next turn, going into turn number 10. And another Scion off the top. Scion's spell actually isn't terrible either.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, in terms of getting rid of a blocker. So I love this champion's design, man. Absolutely.
I wish I could find a card to main deck the Scion spell.
Yeah. Yep. Probably involves Draven.
Almost. So I have crafted so many different Scion decks. The problem is all of them need 9 champions. I need 3 Scion, I need 3 Draven, and then I need 3 of another champion. And that's sort of the deck building problem that I've run into with them, because I cannot in good conscience not run you know, Draven and all these discard supporters alongside the Scion. But I do think that eventually we'll probably get a cool build with him with something else, you know, utilizing the fact that he can summon allies with up to 35 power in order to get the level up. Doesn't necessarily have to discard everything.
Yeah, and he, you know, he counts himself too, right? So
oh, okay. I thought that was a predict that showed 3 scattered pod, not the scattered pod choosing it. Really thrown off there for a second.
Oh man!
All right, we did pick up the concussive palm,
and no Karma coming down yet. Which I mean, it isn't really a huge deal. Again, Pachuki can just toss her down next turn, and she'll already be enlightened, so we can kind of guarantee.
This lets her dodge the Get Excited because she'll be 4 HP when she comes down.
Yep. Yeah, and actually, you know, not for nothing, I had mentioned this the other turn. There is actually no protection right now for Pachuki. I mean, we could predict something and luck out, but right now there's no real good way to protect her. So, yeah, I think you're right, Boulevard.
This is probably just a Mystic Shot onto the Risen Rider, as we still need one more spell for our Eye of the Dragon to go off, and I think you'd like to save that time trick for when the Karma is on the field, because you do need to find an Ezreal. Oh, just not going for the Dragonling.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, at the end of the day, Pachuki does still have to close out the game. And there's only so many concussive palms.
Yeah, so well, this is actually the last palm. We still have 2 but this is the 3rd Fallen Feline, which means we've got quite a few Hexite crystals in our deck. And, you know, 2 of those is 8 damage to the face with a Karma on board.
Yep.
As well as a total board wipe to push through damage. I think the elusive Scattered Pod is really the win con that Pachuki has their sights set on for the time being.
Oh, this is going to feel so tilting for Morkt. This is just every time, like, all right, I'm going to attack with Scion, do a lot of damage. Nope. Not going to do it. Yeah, and actually, Samna's in chat. I do actually want to touch on this quick, because I think this is important too. I did this, like, maybe one of the first times I played Scion, just not thinking.
You just, like, played something that, like, thermo beamed your Scion, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, now this doesn't work. Where's my rally, man? Yeah, you almost are required to open attack with Scion if it's going into your attack token. So,
and it's a line of play that players aren't too used to playing, right? Because the only thing that we've kind of had like that in the past was Lucian, right? Where you need to open attack with Lucian, because if they kill one of your units before you take advantage of the rally, it feels really bad. Scion's sort of a similar vein.
There we go, Lucian Scion. There's the next deck.
Okay, have you, or do you think you will ever see Senna level off of a Lucian dying?
Now? I don't, you know, it's funny.
I forgot that they threw that in there.
It's funny. Okay, so I was playing Senna Vigar earlier, and I was like, oh, wait, that's right. She levels off of Lucian. And then I thought to myself, maybe, just maybe, that Demacia Shadow Isles type deck of, like, things dying, and what's that 1/4 when something dies, +1/+1?
I thought you were talking about Vigar when you said 1/4.
No. Or it might be a 1/3. Dawn Speakers.
Okay,
yeah, maybe that sort of deck actually becomes a thing with Senna now. The problem is Darkness kind of just, like, doesn't feel like it fits into that archetype.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah, I don't know.
We've got Karma, we've got Ezreal, we've got Will of Ionia and Hexite Crystal, all the burn in the world available. And one thing that I did want to point out before Morctorcus meets their untimely end here in the top 30, or in the top 8 rather, Noble Rebel. It's playing these instead of Sump Dredgers.
Yeah, I've seen, and this is where we were talking earlier, I've seen a lot of variations of this list. I'm not in love with Noble Rebel as of now, whereas I do like Sump Dredger because it's almost the same stats. Obviously, it doesn't have Overwhelm, so I totally understand that. But I do think you need that extra draw power to dig a little bit in this deck, and that's something that this Noble Rebel just doesn't offer.
Yeah, I've actually not seen too many builds with the Noble Rebel, but I will keep my eyes out for it now.
Yeah, this is looking like it's going to go to Pachuki here. No way for Mork to get this
We've got lethal with
off.
the Hexite Crystal and the Mystic Shot, actually.
And man, this Scion, I mean, we talked about it when this game first started, right? This Scion came down just in time, just, you know, when he's supposed to come down, but it's just every turn, you know, stunned, and honestly, we have another will in hand. We could have just kept doing this over and over and over again, so...
Yeah, Pachuki could do this all day, but that does mean that Karma Ezreal, probably pretty unexpectedly for most people, is going to be moving on to the top 4.